Let's say, for example, we go to a second shutdown. We now have a platform in place where we can come back and we can be 100% online if we want to. We can also have hybrid learning. We can have some students in school, some students out of school. As a matter of fact, when all of this went down and we created platforms which allowed us to learn beyond limits, now we have students not only based here in Lagos, Nigeria, but we have students in Canada, we have students in the UK, we have students who are in the US, all on our platform, learning beyond their own limitations. My name is Dr. Wilson. I'm the Deputy Director of Education at Green Spring School. Yeah, last year's theme was rigor. It was pushing harder, working smarter. And so what that did for the school, rigor is all about intensity. It's if you're going to learn something, it's learning it at a deeper level. Not only getting the practical, the theory, but also knowing how to apply that theory to practice. And so, for example, if you're exercising more purposefully and more intentional, and you're developing certain muscles, that will be considered rigor. So in academics, if I'm learning math, for example, I want to know more about any of the topics so that I can apply it and I can understand it in context. So rigor is going deeper. It's going at it more intensely. It's really trying to understand it so that I really can apply it later. And so that did a lot for our school. It took us from just learning things that were in the textbooks to really trying to make sure that we know what we know, and that we know it when it comes to what we're learning. We call that rigor. We stayed with rigor because we felt we could get some more traction out of it. But we now have a new theme. It's rigor, and it's learning beyond limits. And so when you think of what are limits, the limits could be the limits of the classroom. It could be the limits of the textbook. It could be the limits of the syllabus. When we say learning beyond limits, we mean how is what I'm learning connecting to the bigger picture? How can I collaborate how can I use what I'm learning to collaborate with groups that are not even here at this school? How can I connect it to a project maybe that's more global? People in other places are working on a similar project, maybe a different aspect. How is what I'm learning fit into the bigger body of learning and the bigger body of knowledge? And so the limits that we have, when I start to think I'm taking this course, I'm learning this so that I can get a grade. Learning beyond limits means that the grade is not as important as the content and the context of the things that I'm learning. So I'm really starting to own my learning. I'm starting to understand that there is a bigger picture. I'm not confined to studying what's in this textbook. I can get additional books. I can go online. I can start to master the subject so that I have a bigger body of knowledge and I can apply it more, maybe not even now, but maybe even later in life. And so it's beyond the limitations that I even place on myself. It's beyond the limitations that my teacher may have traditionally placed on me. There's the expectation that I'm becoming part of something bigger and that my learning is important to that journey. What I learned today, I'll be able to apply it in a bigger framework. If you look at what just happened with COVID-19, if you look at what also happened in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria with the EndSARS protest, before all of this happened, we were in a classroom. The teacher was teaching and everyone was learning in that classroom. When all of this happened, we created some online platforms which allow students to learn at home. They could learn on the beach, they could learn anywhere. So what do? We gave ourselves more options, more learning options. So those limitations that were there are no longer limitations. We're beyond those limits. And so now we're ready to react and be proactive about any situation. Let's say, for example, we go to a second shutdown. We now have a platform in place where we can come back and we can be 100% online if we want to. We can also have hybrid learning. We can have some students in school, some students out of school. Learning beyond limits is so key. So for example, students in the US have a natural curiosity about Nigeria. Many of them may never get a chance to travel to Nigeria. Students who are here may have a natural curiosity about China. They may never get a chance to travel to China. Students should be able to talk to each other. They should learn together. And so we want to create some space. We want to create avenues. Maybe it's project-based, maybe it's curriculum-based, where students are more global. They don't see the limitations of the classroom. They don't see the limitation of the syllabus. And this is a prime example. Right now we're in a space that we just built called the Air and Sea Laboratory. What this laboratory allows us to do is to connect with universities all around the world. And so if you think of a university having a science lab where they're studying marine biology, well, we have a lab here now. So there's a natural connection between them and us. By changing our themes every year allows us to go deeper and deeper into what we do. We go deeper and deeper into learning. So last year we started with rigor, pushing harder, learning smarter. So this year, learning beyond limits. So you can see how it takes us to that next level of depth. But having these things brings us together, gives us common language, gives us a focus, and it gives us direction. It gives like a catapult. It catapults us to the next level. Well, Green Spring School is the place to be. We are an academic and a scholarly institution. We want to be seen as competent in what we do. We want to be seen as confident in what we do. We know that our students are scholars. And so as a school that is thematic and based, you can always expect quality from Green Spring School. Our students are scholars, our teachers are scholars, and this is a learning community where we embrace new ideas and we just go beyond the expectation so that we can reach another level of excellence.